The first time it happened, I thought it was a mistake. I pulled into my driveway on a hot Saturday afternoon, grocery bags sweating in the trunk, only to hear the thump of bass vibrating through the air. Laughter, splashing, shouts of cannonball carried across my yard like a scene out of a college frat movie. My pulse quickened as I rounded the corner of my house, and there it was. My pool, the one I'd worked 2 jobs to renovate, packed shoulder to shoulder with strangers. Inflatable floats, beer cans bobbing in the water, half a dozen lawn chairs dragged in from who knows where. And at the center of it all sat Karen Sterling, HOA president, perched on a lounge chair like a queen on her throne, drink in hand, sunglasses reflecting the chaos she had unleashed. I froze, bags slipping from my arms. Karen saw me then, and instead of embarrassment, she raised her glass and shouted over the music, "Don't worry, neighbor. The HOA approved this. Community use, remember? Everyone deserves to enjoy the amenities." The crowd cheered like she was some kind of hero. My voice cracked as I tried to shout over the noise. "This is my pool. You don't have permission to be here." But the music swallowed my words, and the laughter felt like knives slicing through my chest. That night, when the last of the revelers stumbled out leaving cigarette butts and broken bottles, I confronted Karen at her doorstep. She leaned against the frame, heavy arms folded, a smug grin plastered across her face. "It's not your pool anymore," she said sweetly, venom dripping beneath the sugar. "The HOA voted to designate it as a community facility. That means I decide when and how it's used. You should be honored, really. Your property is serving a higher purpose." Her words twisted in my gut like rusted nails. My title deed said otherwise. My mortgage said otherwise. But Karen, bloated with her sense of authority, acted as if she owned not just my yard, but me. I clenched my fists, rage threatening to spill out, but I swallowed it down. Instead, I took photos of the mess they'd left: beer bottles, food wrappers, muddy footprints across my patio, and sent them to my lawyer. Over the next 2 weeks, it only got worse. Every weekend, Karen threw another party. Loud music, strangers I didn't recognize, kids trampling my flower beds, adults smoking on my deck like they paid the mortgage. Each time I tried to intervene, she waved her clipboard like a shield and yelled, "Board approved. Try calling the cops, they'll back me up." She was so confident, so certain her title gave her the power to rewrite reality itself. But then came the twist. One Saturday evening, as the sun bled into the horizon and my pool once again thrashed with bodies, the music screeched to a halt. A patrol car had pulled up out front, lights flashing. Neighbors spilled out onto lawns to watch. Karen, in all her arrogance, strutted to the gate to greet the officer. "Thank God you're here," she announced loudly, jabbing a finger back toward my house. "He's trespassing, harassing us during a lawful HOA gathering. Arrest him." The crowd hushed, eyes snapping to me as I stepped forward, heart pounding like a war drum. I handed the officer my deed, the official county records I'd brought with me just in case. My voice was steady despite the storm inside me. "Officer, I am the owner. This is my pool. She has no right to be here, and neither does anyone else she invited." The silence that followed was deafening. Karen's smug grin faltered, the color draining from her face as the officer studied the papers. Then, clear as a bell, the officer said, "Ma'am, this property belongs to him. You and your guests are trespassing." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some of the partygoers started gathering their things, faces burning with shame. Others pulled out their phones, recording as Karen's empire cracked in real time. Karen sputtered, her voice rising to a shriek. No, the HOA rules say," but the officer cut her off. "HOA rules don't override property deeds. You can't seize someone's pool. Pack it up. Now." His hand hovered near his holster, a subtle reminder that the law was no longer on her side. I'll never forget the look on her face: rage, humiliation, disbelief all churning together like a storm. She screamed at the guests to stay, to fight, but one by one they slipped away, unwilling to risk an arrest for her. Within half an hour, The pool was empty, the music silenced, and Karen stood alone, her power stripped bare. The sight of Karen standing there alone, her robe dripping with pool water, mascara smeared across her red face, burned itself into my memory like a scar. But I knew better than to think she would accept defeat. Karen was not the type to slink away quietly, she was the type to thrash louder when cornered, convinced volume could rewrite truth. And sure enough, the very next morning, a thick packet landed in my mailbox stamped with HOA letterhead. Inside was a violation notice, accusing me of interfering with community events, and demanding I pay $15,000 in penalties for obstruction. I laughed bitterly, though my stomach churned. She had doubled down, fabricating fines as if that could erase the humiliation from the night before. But the problem for Karen was this. The humiliation hadn't just lived in my backyard. Anna Maria, it had gone viral. Neighbors had posted the videos of the police officer shutting her down, and within days the clips were plastered across local news outlets. Reporters called her the pool pirate. Memes of her screaming community use spread online with captions mocking her entitlement. The more she tried to bark back, the deeper she dug her hole. Still, her venom wasn't spent. On the following weekend, she tried one last act of defiance. I woke at midnight to the sound of splashing again. My chest tightened with fury as I rushed outside, only to find Karen and a smaller group of die-hard loyalists waiting in my pool under the moonlight. Music turned down low this time, as if secrecy would shield her. "You'll never win," she shouted when she saw me. "The HOA owns you now." This time, I didn't bother yelling. I had already set up a motion-activated camera 2 nights earlier, and it caught everything: the trespass, the vandalism, even her screaming threats into the night. By dawn, that footage was on a flash drive in my attorney Renee's hand. Her eyes glimmered with that fierce light I had seen before. "She just handed us everything we need," Renee said. "This isn't just harassment, it's criminal trespass, malicious damage, and attempted theft of property rights. We're going after her. Hard." The twist came when an unexpected ally knocked on my door the next day. Daniel, a former HOA treasurer. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he held a folder against his chest. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered, eyes darting nervously as though Karen might leap out of the shadows. Inside the folder were years of records showing Karen had siphoned off HOA funds for her personal luxuries, vacation trips, spa packages, even the gaudy patio furniture I had seen by her pool. She forced me to sign off on these budgets. I was too afraid to speak up before. "But after what she did to you," he trailed off, guilt and relief mingling in his voice. Renee nearly jumped with excitement. "This is embezzlement," she said. "She's cooked the books for years. We don't just have her on trespass, we have her on fraud, racketeering, and abuse of power." When the court date came, the atmosphere felt electric. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps. Neighbors clustered together like soldiers before battle, their faces set with quiet determination. Karen arrived bloated with false confidence, dressed in her finest blazer, her lawyer in tow. She strutted as though the cameras were her audience, still clinging to the belief that her title meant invincibility. But inside the courtroom, that illusion shattered. Renee stood with calm fury, laying out the evidence piece by piece. The deed that proved beyond doubt the pool was mine, the police officer's testimony, the video footage of Karen trespassing, Daniel's financial records that exposed her embezzlement. With each new blow, Karen's face sagged further, her lawyer scrambling uselessly to object. Then came the most damning evidence, the motion-activated footage of her midnight invasion. The jury watched as she splashed in my pool, drunk and shouting, "The HOA owns you now!" Gasps filled the room, followed by whispers that rippled like wildfire. Karen's voice broke when she tried to speak. "It's not fair. I was serving the community," she shrieked, but the judge slammed his gavel, silencing her. His voice carried like thunder. "Serving the community does not mean stealing property, committing fraud, or terrorizing your neighbors. Your abuse of authority ends today." The verdict was swift. Guilty on counts of trespass, harassment, embezzlement, and fraud. The HOA board was dissolved pending investigation, and Karen herself was sentenced to 5 years in prison with restitution to be paid to every resident she had wronged. She was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, her once smug face twisted into a mask of disbelief and rage. Cameras flashed, neighbors cheered, and for the first time in years, people stood tall without the weight of her tyranny pressing them down. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood transformed. Families who had hidden behind closed curtains began smiling in their yards again. Kids played freely, splashing in their own kiddie pools without fear of citations. A new association formed, one built on transparency and fairness, led by volunteers who cared more about community than control. And my pool? It became a symbol. Neighbors called it the people's pool, though I reminded them with a grin that yes, it was still mine, but everyone was welcome as long as respect was given. Sometimes I sit on my deck at sunset, watching the water ripple gold under the fading light. I think about how Karen tried to seize not just my pool, but my dignity. And I think about how her downfall showed all of us the truth. Bullies only win when we stay silent. When we stand, when we fight with evidence and unity, even the loudest tyrants crumble. Karen's reign ended the way it had begun, with noise. But this time, it wasn't the thump of bass or the shriek of her voice. It was the roar of a community reclaiming its freedom. So let me leave you with this. When someone tries to turn what's yours into their stage, when arrogance tramples your rights, do you shrink away or do you rise and say, "Officer, I am the owner"?